Hello and welcome to the program. We will soon know who is playing in the Super Bowl on February 9th in New Orleans. And as New Orleans prepares for the big game by beefing up security to keep people safe from any possible attacks, like what happened on New Year's Day, law enforcement in New Orleans is also going to be on the lookout for victims of human trafficking, of sex trafficking. Like so many large sporting events, the Super Bowl is notoriously susceptible to sex trafficking. So law enforcement wants to raise awareness about this very important issue so that the public can help alert them if they see anything suspicious. Now, most people think this is a crime that happens in other countries, in third world countries, in other neighborhoods, in so-called bad areas of town. But over the years, we have found that this is something that happens in every zip code. Every day, there is some story about an arrest of people involved in sex trafficking or human trafficking here in North Texas. And here in our area, we do have quite a few agencies doing what they can to help raise awareness and to help the victims of this crime, including New Friends, New Life. Their mission is to restore and empower formerly trafficked girls and sexually exploited women and children. Joining me on the phone today is Bianca Davis, and Bianca is the CEO of New Friends, New Life. Bianca, thank you so much for joining me on the program today.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Bianca, the month of January has been Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And as we try to raise awareness about this very important issue, what is it that you wish more people knew about sex trafficking and human trafficking happening here in North Texas?
I wish that more people would realize that it actually is happening here in North Texas, right in our own backyard. You know, when we think of human trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, we often think that it's happening to other people in other places. But this is a crime that is prevalent right here in the North Texas area. In fact, Dallas ranks second in the state behind Houston for highest number of trafficking victims. And on any given night, there are an estimated 400 teen girls that are trafficked on our Dallas streets. And Texas, as a state, ranks second in the country behind California with an estimated 313,000 victims of either sex trafficking or labor trafficking. So we are still wanting more people to understand that this is a very present and prevalent crime in our backyards.
Bianca, is it still true that for a runaway girl, within 48 hours, she can become a victim of sex trafficking?
Yes, we know that traffickers are master manipulators, and they are preying on the very real needs of primarily teen girls. A 15-year-old girl is probably the highest target for traffickers. He's looking for anyone who's out of place. So if she's run away and maybe she's at a mall or in a restaurant or at a rest stop, he knows that she's not where she should be. And it's at that time that he'll approach her or send someone to approach her. And he's going to approach her with an answer. You can't go back to your parents because they're mad at you. You have nothing to eat. You're cold or you're tired. I'm going to take care of you. So that's likely how he's going to approach her, as someone who can solve a very real problem in her life.
And it's not just runaway girls. I mean, a young girl can be at home on her computer and be susceptible to a human trafficker. You're
exactly right. I once heard a police officer say that the most dangerous place for a teen to be is at home in their bedroom with a cell phone. Wow. Because that online grooming is so prevalent online. That's where he makes the connection and builds the trust and sets up the meetup. And so as a parent, you may think, you know, my child comes home to me every night. She's safe. And she could also, or he or she could still be in very real danger.
What advice do you have for parents? What should they be on the lookout for? What should they be watching out for?
Yes, so definitely social media engagement, which is so difficult to monitor, but what are the apps that your child is on? Who are they communicating with? Also, do they have older friends, whether male or female? Because if you have a 15-year-old daughter, the trafficker may send a 16-year-old to befriend her, or a 17-year-old. So does she have older friends? Is she coming home with gifts that you didn't buy her? Does she have access to money or money that you didn't give her access to? And there is still the idea of branding. Branding has changed a little bit as the industry has evolved. But does she have tattoos? And are they, you may have to look for them in places that aren't naturally visible. So she may have them on the inside of her bottom lip or at the nape of her neck or on her lower back. But what we're seeing now is that branding has turned from just tattoos to more jewelry based. So he may give her a pendant with his initial in it, or she may be wearing a bracelet with his name on it. So you have to be on the lookout for anything that's different or out of the ordinary that's happening with your child. She may also be withdrawn. She may spend a lot of time on her phone, in her bedroom. Anything that's out of the ordinary, we tell parents, you have to consider, is someone stalking or acting as a predator in your child's life?
You do have some incredible education resources on your website, newfriendsnewlife.org, including a page dedicated to parents, 10 ways parents can prevent and identify human trafficking. Do you find when people go to the website that they're shocked at how susceptible their children are to this crime?
Yes, people in our community, I think it's part of it is just you don't want to believe it. So it's easier to say, that can never happen in my neighborhood or to my child.
Yeah.
And particularly when we lead our bus tours, we host a free bus tour for the community once a month where we take people through the Dallas and North Texas area where previous sex trafficking busts have happened. And people are so surprised about where we visit because they expect to go to some seedy part of town. And, when we head up north on 75, they're like, wait a second, my children go to school here or I work near here. So people are still surprised when they see just how insidious this crime is and how it's happening in broad daylight, in places that we frequent, where we shop, where we go for entertainment, where we may go to worship. It's still shocking to lots of folks.
I remember, was it last year or the year before, in a neighborhood in Plano, a house that was an Airbnb was being used for human trafficking, sex trafficking, and everybody in the neighborhood was shocked. They couldn't believe that it was happening in their area.
Right. Because once again, you want to think that it cannot happen here, that I've done everything to keep my child safe, and as long as they aren't kidnapped in a white van in a parking lot, they're fine. But we know that kidnapping, as horrible as it is, that's such a small percentage of how it happens here locally. More than likely, it's going to be someone that she knows, someone that she may love, and he's going to flip the switch when she's not expecting it. And at that point, she feels like she's in too deep and there's no way for her to escape.
Wasn't it like an eagle-eyed neighbor that reported to authorities that there was something weird going on with that Airbnb?
Yes, someone noticed, just a lot of different cars, a lot of different people, all times of the day and night. And so we really are each other's eyes and ears as a community. If you see something, there are resources that you can reach out to 24 hours a day. The National Human Trafficking Hotline, if you go to humantraffickinghotline.org, you can report it online. You can find a phone number. You can send a text message. It's really important that we are on the lookout for each other.
The Department of Homeland Security has been very, very clear, Bianca, that they need our help to end this crime. So what can people do to help stop this horrific crime of sex trafficking and human trafficking?
Yes, I think educating yourself, and so opportunities like this, when you're hearing the information, paying attention, finding ways to educate yourself about the issue, also reaching out to the hotline if you see or hear of anything, and making sure that there are lines of communication that are open between yourself and your children. We know that men and boys and women are also trafficked, and we also know that teen girls are the primary target. So making sure that your children know that there's absolutely nothing that they can do that would ever let you turn your back on them, so that they know that they can come to you. And then I think the other piece is, particularly speaking to the men, we will never be able to end this issue if our good men aren't a part of the solution. If men aren't understanding the link between their behavior and this crime of sex trafficking. So something that may be seen as a rite of passage or a harmless trip to a strip club for a bachelor party, what we know in the Anti-Trafficking Agency is that within those establishments, this crime of trafficking is happening, where many people are being used under force, fraud, or coercion. They're being compelled to commit that act, and someone else is profiting from it. So our hope is that if men are understanding the connection and the link between the crime of sex trafficking and something like watching pornography, that they would make different choices. Because if we don't end the demand, we're never going to end this issue.
And that's where the NFL came out with their whole Real Men Don't Buy Sex campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we're preparing for it locally. As you know, the FIFA World Cup will be in the North Texas area in 2026. There is a massive effort underway by the city of Dallas and other North Texas cities coming together under a human rights workshop that we are on regularly to figure out how do we provide the information, the education, particularly to hotels and restaurants and airlines, because we're going to have such an influx of people coming to this area. And the magic formula is men with money. You have men with money, and that creates the demand. And we don't want something as amazing as the World Cup to be overshadowed by this crime. So we're already hard at work with local officials on how we can address it and prepare.
My guest once again on the phone today, Bianca Davis, and Bianca is the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends, New Life, a nonprofit whose mission is to restore and empower trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and children, providing them access to education, job training, mental health, spiritual support, and so much more. The month of January has been Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and New Friends, New Life also drives awareness of this issue and its prevalence here in our area. It is the second largest criminal industry in the world. And here in the United States, Texas ranks second in the nation for the highest number of trafficking victims. And Dallas ranks second in the state behind Houston, as you heard Bianca mention earlier. So the work that New Friends, New Life is doing in our area is extremely important. If you want more information about the work that they do, you can go to newfriendsnewlife.org. And Bianca, let's talk about that work. What are the programs that you have in place to help the survivors of sex trafficking and human trafficking?
I love talking about our programs. There is so much hope and joy in our ability to help women and girls restore their own lives. And so we have three main programs. The first is our women's program. So we serve any woman who has been trafficked or exploited or has any exploitation in her history. She can come to us for basic needs, like where are you sleeping? What are you eating? We can connect her to resources for housing and food and all of her basic needs that we all have. She also can come to us for the trauma-informed counseling to help her unpack safely that trauma and heal, because so many survivors of trafficking, I heard a survivor once say that by the time someone is trafficked, that's not the first bad thing that's happened to her, right? Yeah. So many survivors of trafficking come to us with, they've experienced domestic violence. They have experienced childhood sexual assault. And so we help them through trauma-informed counseling. And then the most exciting piece, I think, that we do is we also reintroduce her to society. So what roadblocks is she facing as a survivor that we can help her remove? That includes having legal services on site so she can meet with an attorney and help expunge her records, close her records, and make sure that she's not being re-victimized by all the things that she was forced to do when she was being trafficked. It also means one thing that we opened up late in 2024 is making sure that she has access to education. So we have an on-site learning academy with an education specialist that can help women prepare for and pass their GED exam. And so that's been amazing just to watch that growth and just connecting her with employment opportunities. And then the second part of our programming is what we do with teen girls, and that is more preventative. So every teen that comes to us isn't necessarily a trafficking victim, but if she is showing any vulnerability, like maybe she's in the foster care system or she's had interactions with the juvenile justice system, she's coming from backgrounds of poverty, we know all of these things make her susceptible to the person who's going to show up with these false answers for her. And so our goal is to get her through the youth program at New Friends, New Life without her ever becoming a trafficking victim. And then the last piece, as I talked about earlier, is our work with men and boys. We have to educate our men on how these dots are connected so that they can make different choices to end the demand.
What is the average age that a young girl enters the sex trade?
Right now, it's about 15 years old. We have seen younger. In my 6 years at New Friends New Life, the youngest girl that we have served that I can recall is a 10-year-old girl. It's a heartbreaking story of a 10-year-old girl who was trafficked by her parents who had a drug habit. And so think of just the insurmountable amount of trauma that she's experienced and just what a challenging and difficult road that lies ahead for her. But yeah, so the average age that a girl is trafficked is 15 years old.
And that's why the work that you do with teen girls is so important to let them know that they are at risk and that it doesn't happen to other girls. It could very easily happen to them.
Exactly. And that it's not their fault. And, you know, it's easy to write off victims, especially of sex trafficking, as especially adults. It's easy for people to say, oh, she just made bad choices, or maybe she just wants to do this. But we know that if she is 12 or 24 or 46, whenever this happens to her, this was not by choice, because who would want this for their lives? And so we work very hard to fortify our teen girls, to surround them with confidence and opportunity and options, and to make them less susceptible to the person who's going to show up and tell them the lies that gets them stuck in this awful, awful industry.
You know, when it comes to domestic violence, Bianca, there's this misconception. It's like, okay, well, then just leave that situation. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to sex trafficking and human trafficking, it's the same thing. It is very difficult for these women to get out of that situation.
Yes. Any question that starts with why doesn't she or why does she, those are the wrong questions. We are putting the blame in the wrong place. There is such an intricate web that is woven for trafficking victims. Half the time, they don't even realize that they are being trafficked. It's not until they come in, because remember, most times it's by someone they know and love. And so if we have this misconception in the community that trafficking is about kidnapping and, being held in a basement, or it's happening to foreign nationals, then you can be a trafficking victim and not even realize it. And so we are asking the wrong questions when we put the blame or the responsibility on the victim. And it happens so subtly, you don't even realize when that person has cut to the very core of who she is, because it's not all at once. It's little bit by little bit, and then now she has a criminal record, and now she has dropped out of school, and, she doesn't have a work history. He provides all the finances. He has threatened her family. He has physically abused her. What are her options? How easy is it for someone with all of that circling around her to get out? It's a miracle every time she does.
What do you wish more people knew about the women and the young girls that you serve at New Friends, New Life?
Oh, my goodness. I wish more people knew just how amazing these women are, and just how similar survivors are to anyone that you know and love. They're so much more like us than different from us. They are funny and brave, and there's such a sense of community. They are beyond determined. We have to tell, when we've had the snow days or different bad weather days, we have to call our women and tell them not to come, because they will come. They will get on the 2 buses and the train and whatever it takes, and they'll slosh to our doors in the rain to get the services and the support that they need. And so their drive and their commitment and their desire for just a normal, abuse-free life is so powerful. And I wish people knew that if you see a woman on a corner or she's in a club or you've seen her on a video, instead of making these assumptions of what type of person does a thing like that, understand that she doesn't want to be there, and we can give her choice and hope and freedom, and that she's just amazing.
And it is a matter of choice. Sometimes they have no choice because economically they've been forced into this industry.
You're exactly right. It's literally the absence of choice that forces her down that path. When there is no other open door, what is she supposed to do? That's another thing that we work with our community members to help them understand, that if you're going to address the issue of sex trafficking, you have to look at all the other issues that close the other doors that leave this as the only option. So we have to look at our education system. We have to look at poverty. We have to look at all inequities, all the things that set people up where they are not able to sustain and provide for themselves. Those are the closed doors that leave this door open. And you add to that someone who says, I love you and I'm going to take care of you. And if she's never felt that, if she hasn't come from a loving home, if everyone's told her she's not good enough and not pretty enough and all the things, then she's absolutely set up for failure. And so sex trafficking cannot be addressed on its own. It doesn't happen in a silo. And that's why the support of the city is so important. Every January 11th is Human Trafficking Awareness Day, also known as Wear Blue Day. And this was sanctioned by the Department of Homeland Security. And for the second year in a row, the city of Dallas went blue on Wear Blue Day. So that evening, all of our main iconic buildings, everything from Reunion Tower to Omni to the Bank of America Tower, 1900 Pacific, were all lit up in blue. And those are the things that signal to us, to agencies like New Friends, New Life, and signal to survivors that the city and the community is really behind them and is supportive and moving forward. And it's an important piece to the puzzle.
You must also be very encouraged because the district attorney's office in Dallas is stepping up really to tackle this issue.
We are so excited. We've always had a great relationship with the DA's office. We've been a part of a pretrial agreement where if someone has been picked up on a misdemeanor prostitution charge, she can be enrolled in our program for services, and that charge can be removed from her record because there is no prostitution without sex trafficking, right? And so because it's a crime, trafficking is a crime, and that crime is embedded into the act of prostitution, our relationship with the DA's office and this pretrial agreement really gives survivors a second chance, a chance to start over and to redeem their lives instead of being saddled now with this criminal record. Yes, but this recent announcement by the DA's office where they're forming their own human trafficking unit, where there's a prosecutor and a victim advocate to not only prosecute these crimes more quickly and more thoroughly, but also to connect survivors with resources. It sends such a strong and powerful message to us that are in this anti-trafficking work because we can only do as much as the law supports. And so to have the DA's office step up in this way, I don't know if we are the first, but if we're not the first, we're for sure one of the few in the country that's taking such a stance. We're really, really proud of the DA's office.
My guest once again on the phone is Bianca Davis, the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends, New Life, a nonprofit that restores and empowers formerly trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and their children. New Friends, New Life provides access to education, job training, mental health, and spiritual support. The month of January has been Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So today we are highlighting this very important issue and talking about ways that we can all have a part in not just cracking down on human trafficking, but helping the survivors of this horrific crime who are served by New Friends, New Life. You can find out more about the work that they do, the women's program, the teen girls program, the work with men and boys at newfriendsnewlife.org. So how can the community help New Friends, New Life, Bianca?
Yes, you can help us by volunteering your time. There's so many opportunities. If you want to get closer to this mission and to this work, you can volunteer and help us serve dinner and provide mock interviews and support directly to our members. You can also help by educating yourself because you can take that information out into your circles. And so learning what you can about this issue by going to our website, by visiting national resources, that's a huge step in supporting us because the more people know, the more parents are aware, then the less people that we're going to have to serve after they've become victimized. And of course, providing your financial support. New Friends Who Life has been doing this work now for over 26 years. We serve about 350 women and girls every single year, providing all of our services at no cost to them. And so your financial support would be greatly appreciated.
And I know that you work with a lot of corporations because we have conventions that come here to North Texas. And you work with those corporations in raising awareness about the issue of human trafficking and sex trafficking because corporate entertainment oftentimes during these conventions will include going to a strip club or, in some cases, them hiring women to come and entertain them at a hotel. How has that effort gone, Bianca?
Yes, so we have an initiative called the No Harm Network, where we invite corporations to pay attention to what they're funding and what they're supporting, understanding that no matter what industry you're in, you can make a difference. And so to your point, one of the, I wouldn't say rules, but one of the steps that you can take to be a part of the No Harm Network is to make sure that corporations aren't reimbursing for entertainment at sexually oriented businesses. So the lunch that may be at a strip club or at some spa with benefits, right? To make sure that corporations aren't supporting that. Also making sure that on company property, whether it's your technology or being on site, that employees aren't able to access porn using company technology because pornography, sadly, is just so easily accessible, and it is a feeding ground for the crime of sex trafficking. So we're encouraging corporations to make sure that all of their systems doesn't allow for access to porn. And then the third thing is we ask them to invite us to come out and do training and provide information for their team. You know, we have trained at hospitals and banks and airlines and hotels all in the North Texas area. And that's been such a great way for us to extend our message. And so I encourage corporations to consider being a part of the No Harm Network because it lets your employees know that you're taking a stand against this crime within your industry, whatever that may be.
I know you've had so many success stories at New Friends, New Life. Can you share one story that has really just stuck out to you, Bianca?
Yes, I could share something that happened recently. Marriott International has created a hospitality curriculum, particularly and especially for survivors. And so they've been looking for nonprofit agencies that can execute that curriculum with their survivors. And so we adopted it last year and took our women through the training. And so not too long ago, I was at a coffee shop inside a Marriott, and I was there to meet a donor. And I walk in, and I hear someone call my name. And it's one of the women in our program who's dressed in her uniform because she works the front desk, and she was at work. So I think about her particular journey and where she's come from, all of the barriers that she's faced. But because of this partnership and the work training, the counseling, the case management that she's received, she is now just like any one of us, working and living her very, very best life. And so not only was she there, but I walk around the corner to the coffee shop and another member was working in the coffee shop. And so we just had a moment and the donor's looking like, what's even happening here, right? But it was such a testament to see them, as I say, out in the wild, you know, just like out in the community, being their very best self. And there are stories upon stories of that, because that's really all they want. Survivors aren't looking for anything other than the opportunity to live the life that they deserve. I mean, they're not looking for anything other than that. And for her to be able to go to work with someone, you know, someone who's had a criminal record, someone who didn't have a strong work history, for her to have a job and be in her uniform. And not only that, but she emailed us a copy of a customer who had left a review for her. And it was the most glowing review ever.
Oh.
And that experience and her experience is why we do this work and why we need people to care about this issue, to be on the lookout for it, and why we need our city officials to continue stepping up so that we can all fight this together and give women like her the opportunity to live the life that she